all for coming. This is great. Also, I want to thank Richard Evers, whose idea this was and who contacted Stephen. And Stephen brought us all these fine people, and I'm so looking forward to this, this event and learning more about all the wonderful work that you guys do. Many of you I know already. Also, I do need to make an announcement on behalf of the town, which is that they are conducting a solid waste program survey. So we do have printed surveys on the table by the door, or you can scan a QR code and do it online. Also, they are looking for some focus groups, and you get $25 for participating. So, you know, sign up. Plus, you get to have your voice here. That's priceless, right? That's invaluable. Anyway, I am so grateful to be here with this distinguished panel and with my wonderful, as he always says, partner in Sublime, Stephen Dotson, who has helped the library in so many ways. He brought us the ebook library, and he brought us the tool shed. So who knows what he's got up his sleeve now.
E-bike, not ebook.
I did I say e-bike? I was thinking e-bike.
There's so many books around here.
I know.
You have ebooks too, though, right?
We do have ebooks as well. And and I'm sure somewhere there's an ebook with an e-bike in it. So there you are. All right, if not, you know, there's a wide open field. Okay, so take it away, Sustainers.
Thank you, Star. Yeah, big hand for our library. These guys do so much. So my name is Stephen Dotson. I have the honor of serving the town as the sustainability coordinator in the planning department. And tonight, the intention is that I get to showcase all the awesome stuff that's happening around sustainability in Brattleboro and give you all opportunities to get involved on a local level, take some meaningful action, and come to better understand the work of your co-residents, your neighbors, in advancing all these different aspects of what it means to be sustainable. And I feel really grateful that we have such a wide swath of the work being done in Brattleboro represented on the table tonight. So I'm just gonna introduce you all quickly, and then we'll just move right into presentations. So to my left immediately, we have Marilyn Chiarello. She is one of the founders of Edible Brattleboro and its executive director at this point, and she'll tell you more about that. But their mission is to grow food everywhere for everyone. And we have Jamina Shupack, the executive director of Rich Earth Institute, and the official wording of your mission I don't.
It's on the slide.
It's on the slide.
Yeah,
we'll get
we'll
there. Dave Cohen of VBike and Brattleboro Coalition on Active Transport, among many other things, will speak to transportation and the ways in which it impacts us. Next, we have Alex Wilson, co-founder of Building Green, the Resilient Design Institute, involved in conservancy efforts around the state and with Friends of the West River Friends and the Trail. And lastly, one of my other partners in Sublime, as Star puts it, Django Grace, who is the co-chair of the Energy Committee and a known do-gooder around town. He's worked up quite a reputation. So I wanted to just introduce folks, and I'll present a little bit at the end. I'm going to share some slides with Django because our work with the town overlaps. But first, I'm going to move into Edible Brattleboro and pull up some of Marilyn's slides. And you can go ahead and use them.
Turn it on. Yep. Well, it all starts with a vision and with some inspiration, correct? So part of my passion, or much of my life, has been ecology, the environment. I was out there on the very first Earth Day in New York City, and waving banners and what have you, and that kind of stuck with me. And I'm also a foodie. I really like good, healthy food. And my inspiration came from a TED Talk, and many of us have watched good TED Talks. Well, this one just really inspired me. It was Pam Warhurst, and her TED Talk was called How We Can Eat Our Landscape, or something on that order. And I said, wow, this is so cool. They were growing food everywhere. They were growing food at the police station, in front of the firehouse, on the streets, and anybody could harvest, and it was like, oh my goodness, we got to do this in Brattleboro. So at that point, I had just moved to Brattleboro, and I knew Tim Stevenson, who was doing the Climate Change Cafe, and that's how I met him. I contacted him, I said, Stephen, we should do this. I mean, not Steve, Tim. Getting mixed up here. We should do this. And he goes, sure, Marilyn, go for it. I was like, no, I wanted you to do it. And then I got into doing it. And we started organizing just around the table, a few people who were also interested. He put it out to his email list. And the fundamental principle is food is a right, not a principle, not a privilege. Everybody should have access to good, healthy food and not have to really try to, struggle to pay for food. So we planted our very first garden at the co-op, and that, started to flourish after, a few kind of accidents. We didn't really use good soil. We used mulch to plant in, and everything was dying after 2 weeks. And then we realized, oh my goodness, this is not really soil. They said to use that pile over there, and it was just mulch. And so we side dressed everything, and some of those plants are still alive today. That was 2015 when we planted it, and they're still alive. There's some herbs in there. And then I was inspired by this book, The Ecology of Care, by Dee Dee Purshouse. She's a Vermonter. And what she really did was take my passion for food and my passion for gardening and kind of put it together. And I learned about how important microbes are. Whoever thinks about the microbes in our gut or the microbes in the soil, well, they're the same guys that are doing all this good work. And they're the unsung heroes, I call them, essential workers doing all of this incredible work. And every time we disturb the soil, we're killing some of these wonderful workers. So that just made me start to think, oh my God, we got to learn how to build good, healthy soil. So that became one of the missions that we had, and I started attending workshops that Dee Dee was organizing and brought in people from all over the world to lead these seminars, and I just got passionate about soil. And so that's how that all began, and I started to realize that carbon is not the enemy. Carbon is part of life. We're made of carbon, so we demonize it because it's up in the atmosphere. It's out of place right now. So it got out of place because we started burning a lot of the carbon that was in the ground. We dug it up to make it for fuel. And so it's just out of balance. So we just need to restore that carbon cycle and bring it back down into the earth where it really belongs. And so the gardening is a way to do that. And some of the things that I learned from attending some of these seminars were the principles of soil health. So I'll just briefly go over them. Minimize disturbance of the soil. So instead of tilling every year, just move away some soil to put your seeds in or to put your plants in. Adding perennials to your soil is really a wonderful thing as well. Maximize the soil cover. So you want to have the soil covered because otherwise it's just going to dry out. And those little microbes are not going to be happy. They want to have roots there. They want to be able to eat from whatever the roots are producing, and that's the exudates from the roots. So we want to do that too. Increase the biodiversity. So those lawns that you see everywhere, and I remember when I first moved here looking at the municipal building's lawn and saying, oh my God, there could be gardens there. Well, we planted 3 cherries there, cherry trees there a few years ago. And last year it produced, was it 2, Kevin? 3 cherries. But we might have more this year, so just keep a lookout. So eventually we might even have some more kinds of things growing on the municipal lawn. But so that's kind of a monoculture, so we want to diversify that. Keep living roots in the ground all year round if you can. So the living roots are constantly feeding the microbes in the soil, and the activity in the soil is even greater sometimes in the winter. So keep the living roots in there. It keeps everybody happy underground. Minimize any kind of chemical or physical or biological stresses. So we don't use any chemicals on the gardens that we produce or we grow. And if you can, integrate livestock. I'm still thinking about getting chickens and just moving them around the property and let them do their work and they get to eat as well. So I think you probably have seen some of the things that we're doing. We started out with a garden. We ended up adding another garden. That's first year, actually, a turning point. So we have those 2 downtown gardens. And there are 7 or 8 more. There's one over at NECA, actually. We have, so there's a bunch of regular annual vegetable gardens, but now we're moving more to the perennials. And we're just about to embark, and actually groundbreaking day is this Saturday, on a food forest. It'll be Brattleboro's first food forest. So we're going to be creating on a vacant lot along the Whetstone Brook in West Brattleboro. It's 805 Western Avenue. You're looking for the slide, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And there's the site plan, and I'll just talk to that for now. Well, we'll be, and what a food forest has is multiple layers, different layers of growth. So you'll have your canopy layer, which will be the tallest trees. You'll have an understory tree layer, and those will be most of the fruit trees because we want to keep them short so people can harvest. And then there'll be shrub layer and herbaceous plants, some of our pollinator plants and so on, and a vine layer and a ground cover layer. So we're going to be working with those 7 layers. The initial year, right now we're working on pathways. So Saturday we'll be having an excavator there to make our service road. And starting the following week, May 7th, I believe it is, Tuesday, we will be having weekly, three sessions a week. If you really want to get engaged in getting some soil under your fingernails, you know, those microbes are good. And it's good to breathe them also, so you really get an extra boost from doing gardening. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll be there from 12:30 to about 5:30. And every Saturday, we'll be there from 9 to 5. So you could just drive by. If you see us, come and say hi. If you don't want to work in the garden, that's fine. But if you want to come and take some pictures, and we can add that. And we want to really do like a time lapse to see how this lot changes over time. It's really exciting stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. Another thing that we're launching this year, okay, thank you. I was just getting to the last item. Another thing we're launching this year, we got a freeze dryer last year. We had some extra grant funds that we had to spend in a hurry, and I contacted the grantor and I said, can we buy a freeze dryer with this? Yes, indeed, absolutely. So we are freeze drying food. We're making nice soups, and we have them freeze dried, and they're really wonderful for homeless people. They're very lightweight. All you need to do is add hot water, and we just give everything away. So we make our money by grants and donations, but we give everything away because we don't want any barriers to anybody having good, healthy food. So look out for us, and we're out there all the time.
Where do people go if they want to get involved in the food forest or any of these things?
Okay, thank you. Good question. Our website is ediblebrattleboro.org. .com will work also. Just, you can go there, and there is a sign-up form, or you can email me if you want to specifically work on the food forest. I'm going to try to separate out, or just send me a note with the with your when you sign up. There's room for making a comment, and just say I'm interested in the food forest or interested in the freeze dry project. You know, whatever floats your boat. We do cooking events also. And we do a share the harvest stand in the summer, so there's lots of different opportunities for helping out if you might not want to be getting dirt onto your nails. I like it under my nails though. It's ediblebrattleboro.org is our website, and the email address is ediblebrattleboro@gmail.com, and that would go right to me.
Where's the food forest again?
805 Western Avenue.
Which is where?
It's directly, if you could see Academy School from Western Avenue, it would be to the left, and then 805 is on the right side. Well, if you're heading out.
On the same side of the street?
It's not on the same side as Academy, it's on the other side.
Right after Diamond Stone's place.
It's right after the Diamond Stone property,
And
yeah.
who's we?
Who's we?
Yeah.
Edible Brattleboro.
Well, I know, but I mean, are there like 2 members?
Oh,
70
we have
members?
a lot, I mean, we hire two project coordinators, so we have 2 project coordinators, but the basic steering committee consists of usually about 10 people, and we have 6 people on our board. So
and more are always welcome.
Yes,
So
yes.
I want to keep us moving. We will have time for questions at the end, if you don't mind. So quick hand for Edible Brattleboro. And next up, Rich Earth Institute and Jamina Shupack.
Great, and is there a way to let you know when to do slides, or should I just say
Yeah.
slide?
Or whatever magic word you want to say.
Okay. Slide seems reasonable.
Slide is
So I'm with Rich Earth Institute. We're a local organization, we're a local research institute. And our mission, as it says on the slide, is that we engage in research, education, and technological innovation to advance the use of human waste as a resource. And what that looks like on the ground day to day is that means that we are collecting a whole bunch of urine and we're turning it into fertilizer to use on local farms. Slide. So 10 minutes is really short to cover all the things that we are doing. So I'm going to give a really broad overview. And within each thing that I'm talking about, there's so many more. So if you have questions and if you're curious, please reach out. We'd be happy to talk further. So I'm going to tell you why we're collecting a whole bunch of urine and putting it on farms. And we'll talk about our local demonstration project, our research, our education offerings, and then of course, how to get involved. Slide. So in the status quo of our waste systems, we have this pattern and this process right now we are fertilizing our local crops, or fertilizing our crops with synthetic fertilizer very commonly. And in those synthetic fertilizers is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. You might remember those three, they're gonna come back later. And then we're using those to grow our crops, we eat our crops, and then those nutrients come out through our waste, through our urine, through our feces, and through a wastewater treatment plant. And then most wastewater treatment plants or septic tanks are not actually dealing with the nutrients that are in our waste. So those are being put out into our waterways, often just directly as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in our waterways. At the same time, I feel like I need like another little diagram of like what happens on a farm with synthetic fertilizer. We are using a lot of greenhouse gases to create synthetic fertilizer, those NP and K we were just talking about. And so what we're doing is that we're trying to close that loop. We're saying, well, the plants need all these three things. We're creating all these things. Let's just reroute this pollution into something that's creative and able to do something good for the world. And so that's us closing the loop. Slide. And so we've been focusing for the last decade mainly on urine. That's not the only place we're gonna go, but that's where we've been. I like to call it the gateway waste. And urine contains the vast majority of the nutrients in our waste. And by only being a very small percentage of the actual volume in our waste streams. And so if we can reroute that, we're dealing with the bulk of the issue that's going downstream. And one of the big reasons this is such an issue is, as we said, those nutrients help plants grow. Wherever you put them, they're gonna help plants grow. You put them on a field, they're gonna help those plants grow. You put them in water, they're gonna help algae grow. And so we're getting a lot of algal blooms, especially downstream. We don't see them as much here, but definitely Long Island Sound, where the Connecticut River goes, they're feeling our nutrients. And so we actually get quite a bit of funding from Long Island Sound Futures Fund because they recognize that the nutrients we put in or that we don't put in to our water stream here affects them downstream. Slide. Push it again. I forgot that it's a, yeah, woohoo!
Oh, yeah. That was the loaf.
It's a loaf. And so just to give a little context, our bodies every day create enough nutrients to grow enough wheat for one loaf of bread. Wow. So it's actually quite a bit of nutrients that we're creating. Slide. So here in Brattleboro, we have a demonstration project. Slide. We call it the Urine Nutrient Reclamation Program. It's the first and the largest in the country. We collect about 12,000 gallons of urine a year. Of course, every time you're collecting urine and not flushing it, you're also saving water. All of that urine is going directly on farmland nearby. And it also serves as a platform for our research and education. It's a little bit funny to say, but we're not the only ones in the country who are doing research on urine as a fertilizer. But I think at this point, we're still the only ones this won't be for long, but it's been true. We're the only ones who can actually use real urine, because we're permitted to fully use real urine. So other places are doing research, but they're using synthetic urine. And I feel like I have a little bit of like we use real urine. We pee in Vermont.
Is it made out of synthetic fertilizer?
Not quite, but kind of. So it's kind of a funny thing. And so this is sort of the entry point for a lot of people. This 12,000 gallons of urine is coming from our urine donors, some of which are in this room. Thank you if you're in this room. And if you're on the screen as well, of course. And people are donating. People either can collect in their own homes and bring it to a local central location, one of our depots. We have 2 depots, one in Brattleboro and one at the Rockingham Recycling Center. We also have a number of folks who have systems in their home of some kind, and we come and pump it out twice a year, kind of thing. And then we also have a compost portable toilet business that also collects urine as well. And so if you're interested in having a unit in your home, some of the funds from Long Island Sound are actually able to cover the cost of creating that system in your home. So if you're interested, definitely reach out. Next. And so we have, so it's really the impetus for what we've been doing is to keep the nutrients out of the waterways. But we can't just hoard a bunch of urine, right? We can't just like sit on a giant pile of urine. We have to deal with it. And so we use it as fertilizer, as I've mentioned. And so the journey of the urine is we collect it from those various locations, we transport it. You might have seen our truck around town. It has P for Farms as a license plate. It's big and it's yellow. Sometimes it smells just a tiny bit. And then it comes back to our research center. It gets pasteurized, and then it goes out to our farms. Slide. Right now we're working with about 9 farm partners. Each year it varies a little bit depending on what research projects we have. We have some farmers we partner with, like Bunker Farm and Fair Winds Farm, and we just are applying urine on their hay fields, and they'll take as much as we can give them. We can't give them enough. And then we also have a number of farms that we partner with for research trials. So we'll be using a small part of their land to be testing something that we're curious about. Next. And so in this process, along this journey, our team created this pasteurizer, and we started making these tools to deal with urine because nobody else was making them, and so we made them. And so back in 2019, we had a spin-off for-profit company form called Brightwater Tools, and they're in the process of making an entire treatment train for urine processing, which would include carbon filtration to deal with the pharmaceuticals and the forever chemicals, those PFAS and PFOA that you may have heard something about. Then it would be pasteurized to deal with any pathogens, and then freeze concentrated to reduce the volume because there's so much water that's in urine. And so if you're transporting it long distances, transporting that much water starts to feel really silly. And so they're up and running, and they have, some of those units are actually already for sale, and some of them are still a little bit in process for development. Next. And so as I keep mentioning, we do a lot of research trials. There's so much that's not known here. We had a lot of questions around the pharmaceuticals. We did a big research trial with the University of Michigan. Actually, go ahead and slide. We partner with a lot of universities and other organizations. Some of our current partners are University of Michigan, Cornell University, Cornell Extension, and University of Buffalo, University at Buffalo. And so we're just asking the next questions. So as I said, pharmaceuticals, we currently have a trial looking at different recipes involving compost, urine, biosolids, biochar, biosolids from biomass. We did a big lab trial understanding if we could change the pH by fermenting urine with different things at different temperatures, and to see if we could reduce the amount of ammonia that we lose during application. We do different ways of applying it on the land. So we have a lot of questions, and we're just constantly asking them and trying to find the answers. Next. Oh, close. Okay. All right. You can go through these. They're just pretty pictures. Yay. That's fine. And then so education-wise, we do offer classes and tours. There's a webinar series. A really great one is You're in My Garden. I believe that name came from Stephen. And it's really great to learn how to fertilize in your own garden with your own urine, which I finally just got to start to do this year, which I'm really excited about. And then every year we have a global summit where we gather people from all over the world. We have hundreds of people from about 30 different countries who are all working on similar things, and we get together and get all excited about this stuff. Next. And so locally, if you're interested in becoming a urine donor, please reach out. I'd love if you attended a webinar, there's so much information there. If you're interested in coming and getting a tour at the Research Center, we're down on Old Ferry Road by the Recycling Center. But please reach out and schedule a time. It's kind of hard when somebody shows up, there's a lot going on. But we'd love to give you a tour. This summer, I believe on July 6th, we're gonna have a palooza. We'll have a big celebration of local food cycles. Some of the organizations here might be there. And then, of course, we exist on funds. So if you're interested in donating, we're always welcoming. And then we'd love to see you at the summit as well. That's it. You can,
That was
you can end one more slide.
so great.
Sorry if I went a little bit over.
You were great.
Richard has the best slogan ever, you know. We're number one, you know. Give me a P. Actually, my experience with Rich Earth has been to be a pea collector and then bringing my urine to the pea collection site by cargo bike. And I wish, you know, I was away for the past week, so I didn't really get a chance to prepare a slideshow. I actually have a really fancy slideshow for a lot of the work that I do. But I just first want to introduce the BCAT, the Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transportation, a group that I'm involved in. There's about a group of 7 to 8 individuals from Brattleboro that are really working. The whole idea is to really make biking way more accessible in Brattleboro. And we also work on pedestrian issues too, on sidewalks and so forth. And one of the examples of BCAT's work is right outside. There's a bike stand with a whole tool repair kit. And that was gotten through actually our own money that we've collected over quite a long period of time. And we decided that this would be a perfect spot for having a repair stand. It includes all kinds of tools and also the stand as well. We also worked on the Western Avenue Bikeway, which needs some work, but if any of you have driven on it, you've probably experienced like this, like, what the heck is this? But we're really just starting to get bike infrastructure going on in Brattleboro, and that was like, that took a long time. You'd be surprised how much work goes into just developing, bike infrastructure like that. We're also, we've been involved in the Walk Bike Action Plan. There's a really great action plan for Brattleboro, making walking and biking way more accessible. We helped get a second snowplow for sidewalks, which was absolutely important. There was only one snowplow that was in operation. And things like the bike parklet on Main Street, which will be going in really soon. It's a really cool bike parklet that takes over the space of a car parking space. When we first got that in, I was heavily involved in that. I was hoping that it would become really controversial, but nothing really happened. I was hoping people would like, how can you possibly take away a car parking space? But that never materialized. So, but it's great that we have that. We also, the Melrose Bridge sign. Melrose Bridge is a really, really difficult spot for cyclists to pass through, and you'll see signs to allow space for a cyclist on the Melrose Bridge on both sides, and not to pass cyclists on the Melrose Bridge. In fact, cyclists can take the lane on the Melrose Bridge. And we got the covered bike parking at the co-op. So there's actually a roof over the bike parking in the co-op, so if it's snowing or raining, your bike is not going to get all wet. So things like that that are really instrumental in creating basic bike infrastructure. We have many more plans and a vision for Brattleboro, but that takes funds and really working with the planning department to put forward just way more infrastructure and amenities for cyclists in Brattleboro. Cycling happens to be a passion of mine. Not so much as I don't consider myself a bicycle enthusiast. I travel by bicycle. I get to places by bicycle. I've taken my family by bike all around town. I'm mainly a transportation cyclist. And back in 2015, actually 2014, we got our first electric cargo bike, probably the first electric cargo bike in Vermont. I've been involved with cargo bikes for years. Back in Berkeley, California, I started a cargo delivery service called Pedal Express. And the front of our bikes, we had really big bikes, front-loading bikes. The front of the bikes, we had one less car, and the back of our shirts it said, our other car isn't one either. And it was actually called PedX when we first started, and we got threatened by Federal Express, believe it or not. But coming to Vermont, I noticed that getting kids around by bike and just people cycling in general was really a tough sell. And so I started getting into this idea of electric bikes. I had really never been into electric bikes before moving here. And so I contacted Molly Burke, who's one of our state legislators, and she's on the transportation committee. And I told her all about our electric bike, our cargo bike, and she told me to write up a bunch of talking points for the state to take on an idea of really promoting electric bikes, especially electric cargo bikes. And lo and behold, somebody from Go Vermont, which is our state alternative transportation agency, came down to Brattleboro to talk with me. And in the discussion, he said, so how many hours a week do you think you can work for us? I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought I was just giving you some ideas. And so I ended up getting a contract to provide consultations for Vermonters around electric assist bikes. And let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is not radiation in Vermont. This is a conference slide, but this was a study back in 2017 looking at the hotspots where electric bikes are. You notice the red on the bottom in the south is Brattleboro, and the red on top is Burlington and Chittenden County. The number of electric bikes since then has probably gone up by a factor of 10. Next slide. But the thing I'm most really interested in, we've got a lot of people riding electric bikes and commuting and doing all kinds of wonderful things. But I think the electric cargo bikes are really the thing that people are starting to notice, especially when you see parents taking their kids to school. This is part of my work with VBike. VBike is all about looking at how we can reinvent the bike for Vermont. We call it rebooting the bike. And electric cargo bikes are really kind of the flagship for that. This was William Alloway's bike, absolutely beautiful bike recently. Most of these are recent pictures. Next slide. And this is Abby Minuchin's kids on their bike. Next slide. And they celebrated a couple years ago getting their 6,000th mile. Abby, what are you up to now?
Like 8,400.
8,400. So there are a lot of people in town that are going into this car reduction therapy program, right? That's what I like to call it, and leaving the car behind and riding their bikes and really inspiring their communities. I do a lot of presentations on this, and you will not see any of these slides here, about the meaning of how we move our bodies in this world and why that actually matters from a psychological, from an eco-psychological, from a community standpoint. Next slide. Psychological, you got it. And this is Gretchen Cohen. She just got her bike about 6 or 7 months ago. She can carry her kid's bike around. This is a bike that's being sold over at Brattleboro Bikes. Brattleboro Bikes does a lot of great conversions of electric cargo bikes. So you'll see a lot of different people using their bikes for a variety of different reasons. Go ahead, next slide. This is Cynthia Houghton Parker. She's an artist in town. Next slide. She reached her 7,000th mile back in 2022. Now she's got close to 10,000. Next slide. Who's that?
My mom.
That's your mom! Yeah.
She doesn't always dress like that, though.
She doesn't always dress like that. That's during winter. People are riding during winter. They're getting studded tires. We're really extending the range and capacity and the seasonal riding for bikes. Next slide. Yeah, go ahead. We're just looking at all the different ideas that are out there. Next slide. Josh Traeger has been a star. He was one of the first. And he's got over 10,000 miles on his bike. He's probably approaching 12,000 right now. And there's Richard. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Linda Daly. She just sent me this picture. She uses her bike for her landscaping business and also her peace cycling run. This is what we call peace cycling. Yeah. Next slide. And then we put on things called the Bike Petting Zoo, bringing all the cyclists together with all kinds of bikes. And actually, this just came out today. Next slide. Go Vermont, part of V-Trans, actually is putting together this, how to put together a bike petting zoo so that communities around Vermont don't have to have people, bringing the bikes over and showing, bikes from, me going up to, let's say, Vergennes or something like that. There are plenty of people in their communities that already have these bikes, and bike petting zoos are a great way to kind of show off the potential. And the last bit I have, this is kind of a sampling of a huge ride that we had in Brattleboro back in 2018. Just so you can see all the cargo bikes out front. Next slides. And so finally, VBike, you can contact VBike at vbikesolutions.org. We provide free consultations for all Vermonters, Vermont businesses around electric assist bikes, cargo bikes, conversion kits, how to convert your bike, and all the accessories. And we work with people for sometimes, up to two, actually your mom, I think it took her 3 years before she got her bike. But a lot of people get their bikes really quickly. Sometimes it takes a while. Next slide. And yeah, this Go Vermont is basically the organization that's behind this. They are our state alternative transportation agency. Next. And so the free consultations, next. The other just last things to know about, there are low interest loans that are available for buying your bike. There is utility rebates. Vermont has, we have our own subsidies, up to $800 back for a cargo bike. You can get $200 for rebate. It's $1,000 off for a bike. There's e-bike lending libraries. Tony. Yeah, we have bikes that people can take out right from this library, and Tony's been really heading that up. I helped start that. And we're going to have e-bike demos all around the state and bike petting zoos. And so this is about really changing the bike and watching how the infrastructure follows. And thank you.
Great. Alex Wilson and Dave, it's great to be on a podium with you. You were instrumental in lending my wife a e-bike maybe 5 years ago, which she tested a bunch of them out before finally buying one. Anyway, I thought I would step back a little bit in that we're talking about sustainability in Brattleboro going back a number of decades. I moved here in 1980, and at that time, Brattleboro was already kind of an epicenter for renewable energy. A lot of people today don't realize that, but in the early 1970s, there was a pioneering solar development that attempted to get going. They built part of it in Brookline, Grassy Brook Village. That would have been the first solar development in the country. And it ended up failing through losing their financing at an unfortunate time. But that process brought together all these pioneers in solar energy. And that became the nucleus of what was the New England Solar Energy Association, based here in Brattleboro. And I moved here in 1980 to become executive director. I did that for 5 years, during which time we lost our federal funding when Reagan came into office, but really broadened the focus towards sustainability and actually changed the name to the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, or NESE. It's now down in Greenfield and continuing to do very well. So anyway, after 5 years there, I started a little writing company that's now Building Green, a Brattleboro company that's employed roughly 15 people for the last 35 years. And that became a real leader in the emerging green building movement. We were instrumental in launching the LEED rating system, a way to rate buildings as being green. I'm now retired from there, but it's still going strong. Nadav Malin, who's part of the Rich Earth Institute board, is the president there now, a great guy. He's worked with us at Building Green since '92, I believe. But anyway, that little company publisher took some pretty radical positions, being the first publication to push for eliminating chromated copper arsenate, a treated wood product. We popularized the idea that it actually uses more energy getting people to and from office buildings than those buildings consume. That led to a new focus on transportation, which ties into your work, Dave. Anyway, so in 2005, I shifted gears a little bit. Hurricane Katrina happened in the Gulf Coast. I was involved in a national charrette process, looking at how to make the reconstruction there more sustainable. And that led to a focus in the latter part of my career on resilience and resilient design. I ended up launching an institute, the Resilient Design Institute, and that's my main focus today, and particularly the synergies between sustainability and resilience. Meanwhile, my background is actually environmental biology and natural history. And I've been very involved in local efforts in land protection, local and regional. I was on the board of the Vermont Nature Conservancy for a long time. I was on the Dummerston Planning Commission back in the 1980s. I'm currently on the board of the Retreat Farm, the Green Mountain Conservancy, and Friends of the West River Trail, which has been a key part of demonstrating a transportation alternative to Route 30, riding into town. And I commuted by bike when I first moved here in 1980 and figured out where to buy a house based on bike ability to work. So anyway, I wanted to just to wrap up some remarks talking about some of the amazing things Brattleboro is doing today. Land conservation is a key part of my focus, and Brattleboro is really a pioneering place for that. The multiple trail networks around the region. A couple of, back to the history part, when I moved here, there was a company, Appropriate Technology Corporation, that really invented the window quilt, the idea of insulating windows. And they founded the company in the mid-'70s, I believe, and that was another offshoot of that Grassy Brook Village initiative, solar development. Solar applications got started. There was a solar manufacturer, a solar collector manufacturer, Jim Kirby, who some of you may know, founded that company and ran it starting in the late 70s and throughout the 80s into the 90s. That company, through a number of changes, morphed into integrated solar applications, and they installed the solar array on our barn a dozen years ago. So it's still going strong. SIT World Learning has done great stuff with sustainability over the decades. The Slow Living Summit was here in Brattleboro, and through the retreat farm and the renovation of the North Barn, I'm really looking forward to a new venue that can bring programs like that back to Brattleboro. It's going to be a great meeting space that could hold up to 500 or 600 people in theater style and fewer at tables, but a great meeting space that I hope to advance sustainability issues regionally. The trail networks have been talked about a bit. Rich Earth Institute, I can't say enough about the role they've played nationally and even internationally in looking at nutrient recovery from human waste. And Abe Noe-Hayes, who was one of the founders with Kim Nace, worked at Building Green for back 15 years ago, and he was our tech guy. Great guy, and really done an amazing thing in helping put Brattleboro on the map in those circles. So I think that's what I have to say, and look forward to any conversation later, but I'll turn it over.
I'm Django Grace. I'm 18, and I'm the vice chair of the Brattleboro Energy Committee. And in this room, we actually have two other Energy Committee members. We have Tony Duncan, who's our chair, and we have Frick Sprite, who's a member. So I joined the Energy Committee back in 2020, maybe it was even 2019. I was just getting into high school, and I had been doing a lot of activism and grassroots organizing and working a lot with Abby Manukin. And I kind of was wondering what the other side of it looked like, because I was always finding myself pushing for legislation. And I was like, what if I was, to make some legislation? And Tony Duncan reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to join the Energy Committee. And so I was like, cool, that seems like a good way to do it. And I pretty immediately found out that democracy and bureaucracy are really slow. But they work, and I was pleased at that. And I also joined right around the time of COVID, so all of my activism kind of switched into the bureaucratic realm there. So the Energy Committee has been around long before I joined, so I can only really speak to what's been going on in the last 4 years. But I've seen some pretty great stuff happen. So probably the first issue that I was involved with working on as part of the Energy Committee was we got Brattleboro to adopt the Paris Accords. Actually, the Global Warming Solutions Act has climate goals in it, and we got Brattleboro to adopt those climate goals formally. Now, this is just wording, and didn't really actually, there was no action attached to it, but it became a good reference point, and I can see it in the future becoming very important as we establish, how we're going to, navigate development. Actually, before that even, I was part of a group that kind of pushed for Stephen Dotson to become the sustainability coordinator, so that's been really great.
Not me personally.
No. We pushed for a sustainability coordinator, which was very important. Very big to mention. And then Stephen kind of took on a lot of the roles that the old Energy Committee had been struggling with. So now working in that relationship has been really awesome, because Stephen is a full-time awesome guy. Let's talk about the cow power. Okay, so back in 2021, so I got to give credit to Brattleboro Common Sense here. Brattleboro Common Sense years ago brought a resolution to a representative town meeting, which would have had Brattleboro switch all of our municipal electricity to cow power, which is a program that Green Mountain Power has. It's like a revolutionary program, and they use waste product on farms, like manure, to generate electricity from methane. And if you buy into the program, you're investing in that program, you're helping the development of the program, and you get to claim the renewable energy credits that are presented by the program. So we thought, okay, let's have the town portfolio switch to that. Select board wasn't too happy about the idea. When we brought it to them, kind of pared it down. So what came out of it was a partial investment in cow power, which is really important. But the real important thing was that we got what was called the it was called the Fossil Fuels Free Fund when they adopted it, and now it's called the Global Warming Solutions Fund. And this is a $70,000 fund that annually replenishes, or not replenish, like $70,000 are added to it every year, and it promotes sustainability in town operations. And this has been huge. Stephen can talk a lot more about what it's actually done, but I was really proud that we were able to come to that. And it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I was initially actually really pissed off that they had done that, and I was like, oh man, we should have just done the cow power thing, but now I've seen it do really great things. So I was like, okay, democracy really can work in this sense.
And then this year you doubled it. Right?
Oh yeah, and then, well, that was me, but
Upstart town meeting rep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so we, last year we had a partnership program as the Energy Committee with Efficiency Vermont. This was really big. So Efficiency Vermont did a targeted campaign for Brattleboro, and we helped them do some organizing and some networking. And it was really huge in what they were able to accomplish here. You know, you can see some of the figures here. But basically, they just sent us a guy and did a lot of focus here. We had an awesome representative, Brad Long, who many of you may have met. Yeah, I mean, you can see 48 virtual home visits, 14 business energy assessment walkthroughs, 764 energy saving kits in Brattleboro. That's been huge. And you know, it's stuff like this. So yeah, that was very important, and they're just able to give us some figures as to what they were able to accomplish here in Brattleboro, which hopefully Steve will be able to talk about. This is
cover this too.
Yeah. We'll let Stephen go there, but Brattleboro has had some really big steps, has made some really big steps in efficiency in town buildings and town operations, which is often goes without praise, but really should be noted that we're making big steps. We paired with window dressers. I don't think the Energy Committee can claim that much, you know, of that effort. It was mostly Tony Duncan working with window dressers, but they're a really cool organization. We're going to do some more work with them, and they build window inserts for people's homes that massively reduce the amount of heating that you have to do in your house. And they have a really cool, they come in and, oh God, Tony could talk way better about it than I could, but they come in, they measure your windows, and then they have a whole process where they cut out the pieces, and then there's a whole community building day where people from the community or people who ordered the windows come in and volunteer to assemble these window pieces. And then you take them home and you put them in your windows, and your carbon footprint shrinks. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have for the Energy Committee, and Stephen will talk more about some specifics and more about what's going on in town operations. Yeah.
Yep, that works for me. Thank you, Django. Thank you, everybody who was speed presenting. I saw it happening in real time. It was amazing. You guys did great. And we're on track. So I'm going to give a little bit of a summary of some of the other work that I've done in my capacity with the town, but it really builds on what Django was mentioning. The Energy Committee is one of my biggest stakeholders that I work most closely with, and the projects that I pursue with them have some of the biggest impact for the town too. So I did want to just talk about the emissions, right? We have increasing emissions, but this is not because our efficiency has gone down, it's because our operations have gone up. There are more buildings, there are more vehicles, there are more people creating more emissions overall, but the efficiency has actually increased. So we're still battling that, and we have some targets that we're going to head towards in the future. Part of what makes this difficult is the state has not mandated a specific way that towns should measure their emissions. And in fact, there's argument at the state level as to how they're measuring the state's emissions. So yes, we've matched the targets that the state has set, which match the climate accords in Paris and elsewhere, but we don't know how to measure ourselves next to another town in a way that would comport to the state and then the international standards. So we're looking at things on a more granular level at this point. Can we get to a point where we can digitize and remotely manage and monitor every building that the town owns and see, not at the end of the month when we get a bill that's way more, but moment by moment when there's an energy problem. We can fix it in that moment and not have to only learn about it when we're paying for that mistake at the end of the month. That's one of the big targets for us. Some of the other concrete steps that we've taken recently, we've converted 6 more of the town's buildings to 100% LED lighting, including this one here. We have made a huge improvement at the ice rink, removing a refrigerant, 1 tank of refrigerant, which is equal to all of the town's fleet of gas-powered vehicles for 1 year, their emissions for 1 year. That tank contained that. So we're moving to a natural refrigerant there. And it's these kinds of projects that the Global Warming Solutions Fund helps to pay for, to go the extra mile and not just have business as usual. Our next big project is actually across the street at the Gibson-Aiken Center. We just had a major audit done of that building, and we expect to invest, well, at least $500,000, because that's what the state is offering us without a match for a grant, to improve the heating system, the insulation, and the controls for the heating system. We've been replacing a bunch of gas-powered equipment with electric-powered equipment, which doesn't seem like much, but some of those mowers can actually put out, because they're unfiltered and unregulated, they put out as much as a car does in an hour. It's just a different kind of soot. There was one other, oh yes, and at Central Fire, we're updating the HVAC controls, so they'll actually be able to keep their building a reasonable temperature and in proper zones and things like that. So the last one I'll mention, EV charging. We know we have to electrify the fleet for the town, but you can't do that unless you have a place to charge it. So really we're looking at building out charging capacity all over town, both for the town's fleet, but for anybody that needs it, whether you're an employee coming to work, a tourist passing through. We are located in a really prime location to grab people. If you're on a trip to Vermont and you have an electric vehicle, it's easy to say to yourself, let's stop for dinner in Vermont and we'll charge there. Where's the first exit you're going to pull off on? It's Brattleboro, right? So we are really this hub, and people head west from us to get out to Albany, or further north to get up to the whatever else is up there. I don't care. It's not Southern Vermont. I don't care. So energy is a big part of what I do, but I did want to flip through a couple other things. They defined my position very broadly when they initially created it. It isn't just energy, it isn't just environment, it's social, it's economic. I'm trying to help entrepreneurs, I'm trying to support nonprofits. I think I've written letters of support for almost every person on this table up here. When they go for grants, they want the support of the town, they give me a call, and I write up a letter of support, or I help them find grants and give feedback on that. So there's a big balance between trying to make sure the town's operations, its buildings and vehicles and things get more efficient, but also helping what we call in Town Hall, Little T-Town, the wider community, the greater Brattleboro imprint, and trying to help everybody be more efficient and sustainable in their own lives. So I just pointed out the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a great guideline for me, and it encompasses that wide definition pretty well. Dave brought this up, but this is my slide on active transport. We've got a new climate-friendly transportation page on the town website. Please check it out. You can find about busing, trains, walking, biking, hiking, as you like. We mentioned the e-bike library. Django and BUHS and the Peace Jam Club will be having a bike drive.
Bike drive.
Yeah.
June 9th.
June 9th.
At 134 Elliott Street, which is where the Rustic Rooster Cafe used to be, or?
Yep. Yep.
You can't miss us.
And if anybody has questions, we're going to open it up in just a few minutes for those. More EV charging stations I mentioned. We're looking at, could we set up bike and car share programs? We need some anchor institutions that would want to lead that and host the bikes or host the cars. And we continue to try and transform more of our old abandoned railroads into trails that could be important arterial connections into town. So conservation and trails, we had a big grant with the National Park Service. They provided technical assistance for us to try and strengthen and interconnect a bunch of our different trail systems. And so this included a number of groups around town, including Retreat Farm, Friends of the West River Trail, Winston Prouty, Living Memorial Park and its trails. And so they did a lot of assessment of the trails, what condition are they in, and gave us data that can help us go out in the future and raise grant money to improve those trails, find interconnections. And I also had immense support from an Eco AmeriCorps service member at the time, and I know other groups on the panel have benefited from that program. If you don't love Eco AmeriCorps yet, you should. But my service member during that year was instrumental in helping us find all the hidden and abandoned connections, all the old logging roads or carriage roads that people hadn't been using but are still there. What happened when I-91 was blasted through the center of, in between West Bratt and downtown? Well, there's still some remnants of roads that used to go all the way through. Maybe we can reclaim those and reconnect our community in different ways. So we continue to dream about that. The most recent big dream is that of the Whetstone Pathway, which would follow the Whetstone all the way out to West Bratt and give a bikeable, walkable trail and interconnect all these little pocket parks and different things that we have going on. I'm gonna try and keep myself to the same standard and not rant, so I'm gonna keep going here. Food and agriculture have been an immense focus of mine, especially because I started this job just as pandemic struck. It was a very strange time to start a new job. And suddenly food was very, very important. So we just completed, and you can find on the website and elsewhere around the web, a food farm system assessment for the greater Brattleboro area that looks at what state are our farms in, what state are our restaurants and food producers in, and how easy is it to get food as someone who lives in Brattleboro? Is it good food? Where are you getting your food from? What kind of land use choices are we making that will either preserve or threaten traditional agricultural lands? That's all in there, and that's the result of a long process that involved a number of community partners that kind of gathered under the umbrella of the Brattleboro Food Sovereignty Working Group. So that was Food Connects and the Vermont Food Bank and Edible Brattleboro and many others who were kind of doing an emergent organizing effort in the middle of the pandemic to try and address food insecurity, which was over 30% at that point. We've set up seed and tool libraries here at Brooks Memorial because Star just can't help but say yes to me. I just feel so lucky to have her. And we revived a dormant committee that redid the mapping of our agricultural lands for the town, redesigned a loan program for small loans to food and farm producers, and approved of the scope of work for the assessment that we ended up doing. And my last bullet is 805 Western Ave. So what you see too by these slides is that I get to stand on the shoulders of an amazing community that's already so active and ahead of things, being here in Brattleboro. I was given a winning hand from the get-go. So a lot of what you've heard before is mentioned in some of my slides here. This is my last one I'm gonna kind of wrap up with. Oh, I got one more, I can just show you some numbers. I write a ton of letters of support. I give edits to grant applications. I try and help entrepreneurs who are starting ecologically friendly businesses, whether it's a modular building business that's trying to start up here on Main Street. You may have seen the storefront, Logic Systems. Yeah, that's Jason Van Ness. You know, can we find him manufacturing space? Can we find a way for him to find the workforce he needs? He wants to be based here in Brattleboro, but he can't, he's having trouble finding that. He wants to bring down the cost of building stuff by making it cheaper to build and more efficient from the get-go. So we need those kinds of solutions if we're going to maintain a sustainable housing market and if we're going to use our resources well. Other things that have come by, biochar, if you don't know about it, look it up. It's a really important thing, especially for our economy, because a lot of what are considered outputs right now from our mills could be used for biochar, which is a carbon sink, and which can help address water pollution and a whole bevy of other things. In fact, it combines well with a fertilizer known as with Rich Earth Institute. So always trying to help folks get a foothold in the community to do a good thing. And within the town's operations, we're trying to address our wastewater sludge and what we do with that in a better way. Right now, we landfill it in another state. Could we do more with that? Could it be turned into biochar? Could we do better at addressing the PFAS in that wastewater sludge? Same with our road salts. During the pandemic, with the supply chains falling apart, there were towns that couldn't get enough road salt. But then they kind of sat back and they said, well, shucks, we've got a pickle factory down the road. Let's get the pickle brine and see what we can do with that. Well, guess what? We've got cheese brine. We've got real pickles in Greenfield. Other people have used beet juice. There's alternatives out there. It's only a matter of the will to try new things and be a little bit of a guinea pig. And you know, I think sometimes Brattleboro likes to be bold, and that's why it's fun to be here. I could talk endlessly about all the things here, but Brooks, in terms of nonprofits and trying to get a foothold to do a good thing in the community, Brooks Memorial Library is a great place to start. They have a hub for nonprofit support, a resource librarian who would love to meet you and learn your story, hear about your project, probably put you in touch with me to search for some grants. I can help you find other community partners or other organizations who may want to work with you. That's a part of my role too. So I want to wrap it up there, and that'll give us 20 minutes for a little bit of Q&A. And I think I'm going to put this down and pick up one of those, and I'll be able to run around. If folks have questions, raise your hand. I'll try and bring you the mic so that Maria can help us here. And thank you, BCTV, for covering this.
This one, I don't
Not
know
that one?
those.
Okay. All right. You guys are going to have to just share out.
Yeah.
Okay. Saw you first.
All right. Hi, thanks. I have a lot of questions, but maybe just limited to. And I'm an architect, and I built a solar house 15 years ago in Brattleboro, and also before that did more experimental out in Newfane. But I'm concerned about two things. Has Brattleboro declared a climate emergency, and have they made a legal dated net zero declaration? That's one question probably to you. And then I have questions about a bike thing. I've been cycling the last week around Brattleboro, and I'm a bit disappointed about lack of places to put my bikes. I've been borrowing a friend's electric bike. I have my own electric bike that's only 27 pounds, so I'm a bit worried about the weight of these. Mine I can carry upstairs. These don't go so well in apartments above shops here. And I think that there are other options for electric bikes, lighter weight ones, and there are kits that you can add to existing bike to electrify it. You can just change the hub, the back wheel with the motor, and you can put the battery. There are different ones, and I'm just wondering if you're looking at other versions that are lighter. A lot of people struggle with the weight of these. But in terms of the biking, I've been going around shopping around town, and I don't find many places to lock my bike up. And I'm finding I have to use parking meters or other things. And there are clamps that can go on lampposts or places that are colored, that are circle, that you have a better place with smaller diameter. You can lock your bike, or planter boxes that have rings on them that you can lock to. And it would be great to see a visible bike parking in places along the main street so that people sort of see something. Because I've sort of missed that. I don't live here, I live somewhere else where we have some infrastructure like that. So maybe bike and the other, yeah.
I can address your first questions quickly. Yes. I believe at RTM there was a resolution non-binding that passed declaring a climate emergency for the town of Brattleboro before Dave says yes, Django says no, so I'm not sure.
What?
Wasn't
the select board never adopted it?
They never adopted it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a RTM resolution that passed but was non-binding and not brought up by the select board. So
Right.
the House passed it, but the Senate declined to.
Pretty much. Yeah, Brattleboro Common Sense was very active in trying to get the select board to adopt a formal declaration of climate emergency. That was just when I was kind of getting into all of this. And I was at the select board meeting where they decided not to, they voted against it on the grounds that, they were like, it's just wording and it's not going to do anything. And that's what I saw. They even had, there was a group of youth that interrupted their meeting, which was very well received, but nothing came of it.
And the second part, in matching the global warming solution goals with the Paris Climate Accords, 2050 is the year that we've designated to have town operations be net zero.
So is that legally mandated?
It's
It
a
hasn't been
goal.
formally-
It's a
okay.
goal that was passed by the
So that
select
could
board.
change. Alright.
It is not like a piece of legislation like the Global Warming Solutions Act at the state level, which actually gives a legal recourse for citizens to sue the state if the state does not do things needed to meet that goal. I don't know what recourse one would have in Brattleboro, but we're trying to stay aligned.
Have other towns done that in Vermont?
I believe other towns are aligned with the same state goals, but I don't know of any mechanism that could allow that kind of legality
Yeah,
on the
so
town level.
I live in England, and 75% of all the towns in the whole country have done it. And my town is 2030. Most of them are 2030. They're completely unrealistic. But they give a basis for activists to hit back and say, you declared this, what are you doing for active transport? What are you doing for food? What are you doing for green economy? What are you doing for housing? It gives a structure for it, and maybe it hasn't taken off here. It happened there because of Extinction Rebellion, basically. But anyway,
Yeah.
context.
And
And
thank
the
you.
bike, and then
Yeah.
the bike
Yeah,
question?
so, well, you came at an odd time, this is something BCAT, the Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transportation, wants to address, that a lot of our bike parking infrastructure gets taken out during the winter. So you didn't see the bike parklet, you didn't see the bike, well, there's actually a rack right here at the library, but on Main Street, there are 2 other spots where there's bike parking racks. They're just not in yet. They're going to be installed. But that's something we totally want to address. And yeah, you're right. The having them right on the parking meters or whatever makes a lot of sense. Something we want to do a lot more with. As far as electric bikes, yeah, they're lighter weight bikes. They're conversion kits. We have our shops. I should just put out a shout out to our bike shops. They're doing a great job with electric bikes and also conversion kits, lightweight conversion kits. So that's definitely an option, and also lowers the cost to get an electric bike, and they're eligible for the rebates and subsidies.
Questions? Questions?
You mentioned, I don't know your name.
I'm Django.
Django?
Yeah, you can call me DJ.
You mentioned cow power before. It triggered a memory that on my electric bill at home, there used to be, from Green Mountain Power, there used to be a cow power option that you could buy into, but I haven't seen that on my bill for ages now. I forgot all about it. Does anybody know anything about that, whether Green Mountain Power offers a option to regular customers?
Yeah, the Cal Power program evolved with Central Vermont Public Service, and when they were acquired by Green Mountain Power, GMP absorbed that program, but I don't think they've been promoting it as actively. I think it's still there, but not, CVPS, that was their flagship environmental program, and they put a lot of effort into it.
It was on my bill, and now it's not there.
And we just pulled it up here. It's greenmountainpower.com/help/cowpower. If you just Google Cow Power GMP, you can find the enrollment form here. There's a number if you have questions. It adds basically a small surcharge to ensure that your electricity is coming from state-based renewable sources, in this case methane from farms. So you're supporting farmers, supporting in-state renewables, and making your own electricity mix a little cleaner.
It was a very small amount per person, so it was well worth considering.
Oh,
Have you done it?
surcharge, yeah.
Oh, I did, yes.
All right. Ooh, Scout power.
I'll ask another question unless somebody else wants to turn. You had mentioned a bike event in June.
Yes.
What's that? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So this is actually a different group that I'm part of at the high school. It's a student effort. So it's a group called Peace Jam, which is a really cool group. It's actually international, globally rooted. And the premise of Peace Jam is that it promotes like youth action and learning through connecting kids in schools with the work of Nobel Peace Prize winners. So we actually have a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Jody Williams, who lives here in Brattleboro. And so she came and worked with the Wyndham World Affairs Council and a group of students that I was part of to start this program called Peace Jam. And it's been really awesome. And so our latest project, and we're the second biggest group at the high school, by the way.
That is great.
The project is, and we did this last year. It basically, the idea is it's a bike drive where we collected a bunch of donated bikes in various stages of disrepair and repaired them and worked on, putting them together. And last year we only did it for one day. So everyone brought their bikes. We ended up with like 60 bikes. We had to like beg the custodians to let us put them under the bleachers or something. And we repaired them for a day, and then folks were able to come and we distributed about 15 of them into the community after we repaired them. So this year we've scaled it up. Rebecca Jones, who works with 350.org, has graciously lent us her space on Elliott Street, 134 Elliott Street. It's a beautiful storefront. Used to be a restaurant.
The Rooster Cafe.
The Rooster, yeah, right. And so we've been going down there consistently and working on some of the bikes that we still have. And Frick came and helped us one day. And so the actual event will happen on June 9th. And it's going to be all day pretty much. So people should come down if they want a bike, if they have a bike, if they want to help us fix bikes, if they just want to be around some cool stuff happening. Yeah, it's going to be really awesome.
So it might be a great way to get a bargain on a bike, huh?
You will get a free bike.
Free bike.
You.
That's a bargain.
And can some of those be electrified, you think?
I would reckon so, but we don't know how to do that.
Right.
But
Maybe Dave can help
Dave
you with
Cohen
that.
does, though.
Yeah.
Dave Cohen does. I see another hand.
So, a very delightful bunch of kids who, young adults, really, who I'd like to put a shout out to them or to anybody who has bicycle repair experience and can connect with Django and the group to help coach them. That's what I spent the day doing. I donated a bunch of decrepit things that people have left around my apartment houses, and some of them will probably end up being parts, and others will end up being functional bicycles. Some were really close, but anybody who has bicycle dedicated tools who's willing to help them, that would be a huge help to them. And I suppose, would you take donations to help cover things like tires and cables and other things that you're going to need?
Yeah, certainly. So this is where I'm hesitant, because last year we were like, yeah, we'll take as many donations as we can get, and we ended up with 60 bikes, most of which are rusting under the bleachers now.
I meant monetary donations.
Oh, monetary donations would be welcome. And we don't really have a good network of how to take donations yet, so on the day of would be great. But if you have a bike in good condition, or that would require some minimal repair, we're basically trying to avoid getting a bunch of rusty frames and chains like we did last year. Please connect with me after this, and we'd love to figure something out. Yes, and if anyone is able to, donate whatever they can, I guess just connect with me and we'll figure something out. Hopefully, we'll be able to publicize a more formal way of getting donations in, but until then,
Are you connected with this through the Leland and Gray group at all? I mean, do they know about it? Are they?
I've talked to one guy, and you were there when I talked to that one guy. So it's been a minute. Yeah, it's we're very busy. But yes, that is something that is going to come to the table as soon as possible.
You're talking about the Leland,
Yeah, the Leland and Gray Bike project is huge.
Because they're doing a lot of work helping. They're actually setting up a thing helping refugees get bikes.
Yeah.
And learning how to repair them. So another question is, does anybody want to send information to the Energy Committee to put on the Energy Committee Facebook page that I then channel through the Brattleboro Facebook page to let the community know about the stuff that you guys are doing?
How do we do that?
Yes, yes.
Any information can be sent my way, and I can pass it through to our amazing social media managers, Tony and Django, on the Energy Committee.
Or follow the Instagram.
Yes, yes.
And if
We're on this.
anybody lives in Dummerston, we have an energy committee in Dummerston as well, and we're looking for new members. So let me know.
Well, the Brattleboro Energy Committee is looking to connect with other energy committees. We have with Marlboro and Guilford, so it'd be great to connect to you guys.
Get a room, guys, get a room.
Abby, can you hear? Is that coming through? Yeah, Abby Manukin, good to be here. Sorry I was a little late. I think I walked in when Marilyn was talking, so I just missed a little. Yeah, I appreciate the diversity of different areas around sustainability that were represented tonight. I'd also love to have a discussion at some point about how climate justice, environmental justice intersects with other forms of activism and social justice, like economic justice, racial justice, migrant justice. It feels like they're all really interconnected, and so often this work gets siloed, and it's like, tonight we're gonna like focus on this topic, and then another time we'll focus on this topic, and then this topic, and it's just all so related. I mean, it feels like all of the work that you're doing up here is very related, and it just still feels like there may be some missing components that that are part of this conversation, that could help to connect more of those dots in terms of how all of our struggles are connected, so that it's not just like sustainability separate from other things.
Can I comment on that for just a minute? Another thing Brattleboro has going for it is membership on the Vermont Climate Council. And Paula Melton, who's on the council, and also a colleague at Building Green, she mentioned to me just today that they're putting together more community-based social equity committees. So get in touch with her if you want to, and she'd love to get involved. Candace Pearson is also on one of the Climate Council committees focused on community resilience. So that's another avenue for involvement statewide, but with a heavy Brattleboro contingent.
Definitely I've been working with the state to up subsidies for, low-income families, to really make, all these things accessible. The whole idea behind the consultations is really to help people that are underserved, and we're trying to get that message out that, this is something you could do. You could save a ton of money. You could be, way more in the community, and, lead what we call a sustainable lifestyle, at least, something that makes sense. But the idea is that really tying the subsidies more into also income brackets that really need it. We're seeing that across the United States, and it should be happening more here. So that's going to be a further push.
Thank you, Dave. Yes. And one reason that Brattleboro was chosen for that Efficiency Vermont campaign is because we are one of the most energy burdened towns in all of Vermont. So the emphasis and who they were really hoping to reach were renters and people who are experiencing a large energy burden as part of their monthly bills, but may not own their house. And so when you see those numbers, that's who that was really targeted towards. And we see that more and more from both GMP and Efficiency Vermont, that there's an equity lens in how they're trying to target their programming, how they're trying to shape their funding and incentives, So hopefully that can continue, but there's a long way to go.
Well, you just used the phrase, I think it had to do with equity. And the way equity, the power equity is distributed. I didn't quite understand what that was.
I think I used energy burden.
You use that word, you use those words, and that would do, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so just as if when someone is spending more than 30% of their monthly budget on their housing, we call them housing burdened. You're overpaying in terms of your proportion of your resources to your housing. The same can be said of your energy.
Okay, is there a number or a statistic?
That, I don't know the exact number of where they cut it off for the state. I wonder what it would be in terms of percentage of your monthly budget.
Yeah.
But it's pretty standardized. I just don't know where they draw that line.
Could I just add, fuel poverty is a good way to describe that. You're put into poverty because you can't afford your fuel. So the terms that we use a lot are fuel poverty, and you target people in fuel poverty so they get more help with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those people have the fewest resources with which to make the transition, right? Solar panels are a privilege in a certain
How is
sense.
that defined?
A percent of their income. I mean, you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. So there's
Within
ratio-
that, there's another percentage
Yes,
then.
Mhm.
Yeah, one other key piece within your energy burden is how much you spend on transportation. So it's your fuel for heating and cooling your home, to keep your lights on, and then how do you get to your place of employment? How do you get around town? How do you get groceries? And it doesn't just include the gas you put in the car, it's the maintenance to keep the car, the winter tires that hopefully maybe you can afford, and all of those things. And so to Dave's piece about how do we get people feeling more safe when they're biking and walking on the roads, and sometimes it gets down to this chicken or egg thing of like, well, if there's more bikes, then there should be more bike infrastructure. And really to get most of the people out there feeling safe, whether they're 8-year-olds or 80-year-olds on bike, we need better infrastructure where they can say, great, I can send my kid to school biking, and I feel good about that as a parent.
And Kevin, if you know someone who is feeling the energy burden, do you know who they should contact?
Yeah, there's lots of folks to helping you with your energy burden. Efficiency Vermont is a great resource there. SEVCA, which is a community action agency, helps folks understand their energy burden, and also, even if you qualify, can help you weatherize your home. So you're spending less on your heating bill and also increasing your health potential there because you're living in a building that has a lot less potential for mold and other bad things that you don't want.
They also have emergency heating funds, so if you need half a cord of wood to keep your house warm through the long winter, they're the people that you can call. And I had to give that to Kevin because he's been working for SEPCA for the last year or so.
Do you know the details on the Solar for All, or is that still?
Nope.
Still being, yeah. Well, it's $7 billion, we're getting 62 million, Vermont is.
No one's giving me any.
Yeah, well, Vermont's getting 62
Okay.
million to help marginalized.
Build solar in under-resourced communities.
Yes.
Excellent, okay. So more coming. I think we're at or past time unless someone's got a real, but please come and talk to the panelists afterwards, and just thank you for coming and taking an interest. Thank you, Star, for hosting. Thank you, BCTV, for filming. Everyone who came, thank you. And Richard Evers, yes.